Hello, everybody. This is Bernie Stroum, and welcome to my YouTube channel for today's So You Think You Know the Red Sox with Bernie Stroum. Thank you for coming by and joining me for the part two presentation of the 1976 season. 1976 was an interesting year. Expectations were high as the Red Sox had just missed a World Series champion for the second time in 8 years, losing in 7 games to Cincinnati. As I sip my Sunday morning coffee, I hope everybody's sitting back and relaxing. As we take a look at the second half of 1976, as the summer rolled on, the Red Sox found themselves battling more than just the opposing pitchers. My notes say they were fighting injuries and they were fighting inconsistencies. They weren't really as good as they thought they were. And they were fighting the weight of all those expectations that we as fans had for them after the 75 World Series. Despite all those things that were happening to them, they continued to fight. Louis Tiant would pitch every 5 days, packing the stadium as he became a big star in Boston, twirling away on the mound every 5 days. He was just a great pitcher that year, and more often than not, Boston was always in games he pitched. Carlton Fisk remained a great hitter after he had come back from his injuries. Let's see what else I have in my notes. He expected excellence from himself and demanded it from everyone else. He was starting to become a clubhouse leader. Fred Lynn continued to play very well, although he didn't have the same season in 76 he had in 75. He was probably the best center fielder the Red Sox had in years. And then, of course, there was Jim Rice, who never played in the 75 World Series because of injury. He was a big star. It was apparent that Rice was headed for the Hall of Fame, although it took him a long time to get there. He was entering the beginning of 10 of the most productive years in the history of baseball, if you look up his stats. And Kari Yastrzemski was still playing well. On July 9th, the Red Sox suffered a profound loss. It wasn't a player, it was Tom Yawkey died. He had owned the team for 4 decades, and his passing marked an end of an era and a beginning of another one where the ownership of the team would fight with one another, and there would be doubts about, because Gene Yawkey inherited it, but the people that ran the team for her, were arguing all the time. It was an emotional time for the team. Boston fans thought the second half was the time the Red Sox were ready to make their move, but they had injuries, missed opportunities. They didn't play very well, and it really became they really never got in the pennant race in 1976. And when the season finally ended, they were only 83-79 and in third place. And they had to take a good look at themselves. During the season, they had a 10-game losing streak. They had brawls with the Yankees, which caused Bill Lee to miss a big chunk of the season. They had the trade with Raleigh Fingers and Joe Rudy that never happened, but they were photographed in Red Sox uniforms. That was surreal. Tom Yawkey died. On the positive side, Jim Rice got better. Louis Tiant was still good. Yastrzemski still played well, and Carlton Fisk had a good year. And believe it or not, 76 was going to be a foundation of 3 years coming up where they win 97, 98, 99 games in 3 consecutive seasons and never end up in the playoffs. How do I remember the 76 season? I remember it as disappointing. There's a lot of what ifs if you're a APA, Stratomatic, Action PC fan, Out of the Park fan, and you want to replay these seasons. There's a lot of what ifs. You can play it as what if Bill Lee didn't get injured? What if Raleigh Fingers and Joe Reedy had actually played for the Red Sox? You could do all sorts of projects with 76, but what you can't do is you can't go to the World Series. And with that said, let me see. I got a few more things I want to talk about. 76 was a team, I think, that was a transition team between the 75 pennant winners and the juggernauts they put on the field in 77, 78, and 79, none of which, like I said, made the playoffs. 78, they had a play-in game as they tied the Yankees, and everybody knows what happened there. We'll cover that in a couple of more broadcasts, and we'll cover that in great depth. I made a list of the 10 most important Red Sox games in 1976. And let me see did I put them in order? Well, let's do it in matter of importance. On May 20th, the Red Sox beat the Yankees 8-2. Dwight Evans threw out Lou Piniella at home. Piniella crashed into Carlton Fisk, and a bench-clearing brawl fight erupted. Craig Nettles lifted Bill Lee and slammed him onto the ground. And dislocating his shoulder after the fight, Rick Burleson hit a 2-run homer. Yastrzemski hit 2 2-run homers, and the Red Sox pulled away. The victory was memorable, but losing Lee, who had won 17 games each of the three previous seasons, was enormous, and I think that was the biggest loss for the Red Sox, and one of the big reasons why 1976 was not a big year. On May 11th, just 9 days earlier than that, the Red Sox had finished the 10th loss in a row in a 10-game losing streak. And their record at that time on May 11th was 6-15. That's pretty tough to come back from. And as any fan knows, 10-game losing streaks, a lot of games you'd win in those, but the ball just bounces the wrong way. July 18th, another important date in 76 Red Sox history. As I sip from my coffee, July 18th, Kansas City beat the Red Sox 6-3, and Darrell Johnson was fired. The record at the time was 41-45. They made a comeback from their 6-15 start, but it wasn't enough. The disappointment had hit the front office, and Darrell Johnson was gone. Let's see, what other games did we list? On May 12th, the day after the 10-game losing streak, the Red Sox finally stopped the collapse. The victory began 4-game winning streak and offered temporary hope that they were going to come back, but that didn't make it. On July 7th, Red Sox played a 10-inning game with the White Sox. White Sox beat them 6-3. Boston had won the first 2 games of the series and climbed above 500 for the first time all season, but in the final, the Red Sox forced extra innings but allowed 3 runs in the 10th. 2 days later, longtime owner Tom Yawkey died. That was a big deal. Don Zimmer earned his first victory on July 20th. Zimmer had a great run with the Red Sox, although he finally, like all other Red Sox managers, lost his job. On July 20th, Boston lost. Actually, July 19th, Boston lost Zimmer's first game, but went on to win the following night on the 20th, my notes say here. It was the first victory in Zimmer's career, and it led to 3 great Red Sox seasons, 77, 78, and 79, which I mentioned. We'll start with 77 next week. By the end of July, the Red Sox had a glimmer of hope. They sweep the Yankees 6-4, 4-2 on July 31st. However, they were still too far behind. The following day, on August 1st, they swept the Yankees. They beat them 5-4. And let's see what my notes say about that game. There was some excitement in Boston, but they just lost too many games. Boston's 7th victory in 8 games in September, on September 10th, lifted their record only to 77 and 77. Way too late for them to compete. And lastly here, let's see what I have. Okay. Basically, that's the end of the 76 season. It ended in a whimper. If you hold on 1 second, I just dropped a book I got to pick up. I was going to read something from that book. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I use this book a lot, the Red Sox Journal. 1977 is next season. One more flip. 1976, they were 83-79. I mentioned that they finished 15 games out. Don Zimmer finished the season with a 42-34 record, which showed some hope. They were 5th in batting, the Red Sox, although they were 1st in home runs and slugging percentage. They were a slow team. They were 9th in stolen bases. Pitching was terrible. They were 8th in the American League, and they were 9th in runs allowed. Carlton Fisk was the catcher. Yastrzemski played 1st and left. Denny Doyle was 2nd. Butch Hobson at 3rd. Rick Burleson at short. Rice was both the DH and left fielders. Lynn in center. Evans in right. Cecil Cooper shared the DH job with Rice and the first base job with Yastrzemski. And Rico Petrocelli was at the end of his career. Club leaders for 1976. Fred Lynn hit .314. Rice had a slugging percentage of .482. Rice had 25 home runs. Yastrzemski had 102 runs batted in. Lynn had 14 stolen bases along with Burleson. Tiant won 21 games. Jenkins led the team in strikeouts. Tiant's ERA was .306. Their bullpen was terrible. Willoughby only had 10 saves. Anyway, that was 1976. 1977, 78, and 79 were exciting years. They were years that you want to be here to listen to. 76, I didn't spend a lot of time, once again, in Fenway Park, being married and starting a family. It was, as you know, you don't do a lot of things you do when you're a teenager and have all that free time. But although 76 was so disappointing, it led to 3, I think, of the best exciting seasons the Red Sox ever had that didn't end up in a pennant. So I want to thank you for coming by and listening to me. So you think you know the Red Sox with Bernie Stroum. We spend 15, 20 minutes here every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern with you, and hope to see you next week for the 1977 season. Thank you all, and I hope you all have a great Sunday. See you later.